some data about the loss of biodiversity, that is in the last 25 years, 20 years. So what are the important organisms that have got extincted? And then we discussed about the 4 important reasons that led to the loss of biodiversity. And those 4 reasons were together called as the evil quartet. Okay, evil quartet. And what are those 4 reasons? Shall we recall? The first one is, the very important reason is habitat loss. So habitat loss and fragmentation is the first cause. The second one is over exploitation. Third one is invasion of alien or exotic species. And fourth one is co-extinction. Okay. So these are the 4 important reasons that were responsible for the loss of biodiversity. Fine. Now today we can discuss the next topic, that is the processes of extinction in biodiversity. Processes of extinction in biodiversity. So you know, organisms will become extinct, right? And that will lead to the loss of biodiversity. And how do this extinction will happen? So there are we have 3 different types of extinction. So that is what we are going to discuss under this topic, the processes of extinction. How the processes of extinction will occur that will lead to the loss of biodiversity. So what are the 3 different types of extinction? The first one is called as the natural extinction. The second one called as mass extinction. And third one is said to be the anthropogenic extinction. So already yesterday I told you what do you mean by anthropogenic, right? Anthropogenic means wherever human activities are involved, then we call it as anthropogenic. So what do you mean by this first type of extinction called as natural extinction? So natural means this is going to happen by nature, that is with the change of environmental condition. Okay. So when see sometimes the environmental condition may vary, right? So because of change in environmental condition, some species have disappeared and more adaptive species have appeared. That is what we call it as, when new adaptive species are appearing, we call it as evolution, that is speciation. And sometimes due to a change in environmental condition, some species, those species who cannot cope up with the environmental condition, no, those species will get disappear from the earth. Okay. And that is called as natural extinction. So you just write what do you mean by natural extinction? With the change of environmental condition, with the change of environmental conditions, some species have disappeared. Disappeared means totally they have got extincted. That is not even a single organism will be there in the earth. Okay. Some species have disappeared and more adaptive species have appeared. And more adaptive species, those organisms which can adapt to the environmental condition, no, they will appear, and some species will disappear because of the change in the environmental condition, right? So this extinction, natural extinction, it occurs very slowly. This is a slow extinction. It is a very slow extinction, and this natural extinction can also be called as, it is having another name. Let me write here, the natural extinction is otherwise called as background extinction. Okay, the other name for natural extinction is background extinction, right? So got it, what is meant by natural extinction? Now the second type of extinction is the mass extinction. Mass, always mass means like bulk, okay, as a whole, that is called as mass. So mass extinction, no, here the extinction of large number of species will occur due to natural calamities or catastrophes. Okay, so due to natural calamities, due to calamities may include flood, cyclone, earthquake, landslide, or forest fire, something. Okay. So due to this natural calamities, or it can be calamities, can also be called as catastrophes. The other name for calamity is catastrophes. Due to natural calamities or catastrophes, there will be extinction of large number of species. Large number of species will get extincted because of natural calamity or any other catastrophes that occurs. Example, the mass extinction that occurs in the extinction of dinosaurs. Yesterday I told you, right, the dinosaurs extincted during the Jurassic period. Okay, so Jurassic period, there was one period called as Jurassic period. In a particular era, in that period, there was a mass extinction of dinosaurs. That is, not even a single organism was left in that particular species. Completely, all the organisms they are the present in this particular species will get extinct. And the last one is the anthropogenic extinction. Anthropogenic is this type of extinction occurs because of the activities of human. Okay, due to human activities, this type of extinction will occur, and this disappearance of species or extinction of species. This appearance of species occurs due to, as it is anthropogenic, you can say it is due to human activities. Okay, so this extinction is completely a man-made extinction. Because it is happening of human activities, it is also said to be man-made extinction. And this man-made extinction, no, it represents a severe depletion of biodiversity in terms of time. The current rate, actually now the extinction that is taking place, no, the current rate of extinction is 1,000 times higher than the background extinction. So this anthropogenic extinction, this man-made extinction, it represents, I'm continuing for this anthropogenic extinction mark, it represents a severe depletion of biodiversity. It represents a severe depletion of biodiversity. In depletion in terms of time. That is, it occurs very fastly. Background extinction, I told you, no, it occurs very slowly, but anthropogenic extinction is not like that. It can occur rapidly, and this current rate of extinction of this anthropogenic, current rate of anthropogenic extinction is 1,000 times higher than the, is 1,000 times higher than the background extinction, which we call it as natural extinction. Fine. So suppose, see, that's what I told you, like if the current rate of loss of biodiversity continues, no, it may lead to loss of about 50% of the species by the end of 21st century. By the end of 21st century, more than like 50% of the species what we have at present in our earth, no, will get extinct if the current rate of this anthropogenic extinction occurs. Fine. So that's all. These are the processes of extinction of biodiversity. So I'll show you the first slide again. The first one is natural extinction, which is also called as background extinction. It occurs slowly, and this is because of the change in the environmental condition, and some species have disappeared and more adaptive species have appeared because of natural extinction. The second one, mass extinction, no, like sudden due to sudden natural calamity, there will be a bulk extinction of organism, that will large number of species will get extinct in this mass extinction. Example is extinction of dinosaurs. Anthropogenic extinction, this occurs due to human activities, and this is a man-made extinction, and this represents a severe depletion of diversity with respect to time. Current rate of anthropogenic extinction, no, it is 1,000 times more than the natural extinction. So if this current rate is continuing, then in the next next in like some number of years, 50% of the species will get extincted because of this anthropogenic extinction, right? Yeah, I'll show you the first slide. We just copy the notes. I'll wait. Please let me know, Ma, if you have finished writing. This is the first slide. Please let me know. Yeah, most probably I will try to complete the lesson by today. If not, then tomorrow I will complete. Okay. Have you finished writing the first one? Shall I show you the second one? Yes. Students, have you all started reading this biodiversity chapter? Have you started reading? Anyways, by tomorrow we are going to complete the chapter. No, please don't wait for the chapter to get over. You can start reading whatever things that has been taught. Okay. Yes. Good. 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 Yeah. So now we can go to the next topic, that is regarding to this process of extinction of biodiversity. One more concern topic is, that is, how do like organisms are susceptible to extinction. Okay, so that is what we are going to discuss. Okay, so I'm going to tell you some of the characteristic features. What do you mean by susceptible? Any idea? Susceptible, what do you mean by this word, Ma? Susceptibility to extinction. Survive? No. Resistant? No. You all are giving me the opposite meaning. Yes, vulnerable. Very good. So only one student has told the correct answer. It is vulnerable. Vulnerable means the organisms which are easily prone to extinction. Prone means easily it can enter into the extinction. Okay. So please mean like susceptible is not like resistant. Okay. It is more vulnerable. So I'm going to tell you some of the species. That is the species with some features. Usually, when mass extinction, you just think during this Jurassic period, something has happened that has led to the mass extinction of dinosaurs. Okay, all the living organisms like got existed, that is got extincted during that period. No, right? Only dinosaurs and some other living organisms. Why that particular organism got extincted? Because of this some natural calamity or catastrophe. So the organisms with some characteristic features, no, they are more susceptible to extinction. They are more susceptible to extinction. So in bracket, you can write, if you are not understanding the meaning of this susceptible, you can write more vulnerable. More vulnerable means it can be more easily prone to extinction. It can easily enter into the extinction, and extinction can occur very easily in these species which are having the following characteristic features what I am going to discuss. Okay, so 5 important characteristic features are there. If these characteristic features, any of these characteristic features are present in a particular species, then those organisms are more vulnerable for extinction. Okay, so that is, they are like more vulnerable when compared to then the other species. It is not like other species will not get extinct. When compared to other species, these species know the features what we are going to discuss. Those features organisms can easily enter into the extinction case. So what are the characters? I'm going to discuss 5 important characters. So the first one is the organisms or species which are having larger body size. Okay, so dinosaurs were very huge. They were very gigantic and the body size is very huge. And reason why larger body sized organisms are easily prone to extinction is the BMR will be very less. So in organism and population, I asked you one question. Do you remember? An ant can like easily climb up a hill when compared to a small, bigger organism. Smaller organisms can run very fast when compared to bigger organism. Simple reason is the basal metabolic rate is higher in smaller organism, right? When basal metabolic rate is higher, the organisms will be more resistant and it will be like they can resist the environmental condition. So whenever the body size is bigger, they will have lower metabolic rate. Lower metabolic rate will have lower stamina and lower resistant power, and they cannot withstand with the natural calamity or catastrophe taking place in the environmental condition. And that's why larger body size organisms are more vulnerable to extinction when compared to smaller body size organisms. Okay, so larger body size, you just write example, larger body sized organisms, elephant. Now at present, no, elephant are easily vulnerable to extinction when compared to other organisms. Bengal tiger, lion. Okay, so all these organisms are more vulnerable because they all have this larger body size when compared to other organisms. If I yesterday we discussed, suppose if the sixth episode of mass extinction occurs, right? So these organisms are more vulnerable to extinction. One of the reason is they have larger body size, right? Now the second reason is the organisms, the species with smaller population. If the population of the organism, any of the species of the organism, the population is very small, with why the population is very small in a particular species, because they will have low reproductive rate. The reproductive potential of that particular organism will not be high. We discussed, you remember in population, I discussed about biotic potential, right? Biotic potential, see, one student is asking, if the BMR is very low, then how lions and tigers are able to run very fast? When compared to like deer and smaller organism, they will run slow. Okay, so it is not like the BMR, only BMR is responsible for the organism to run very fast or run very slow. Okay, so when we are talking about extinction, don't compare this concept with that. BMR, why I am telling here is, when a body size of an organism is bigger, then the BMR is comparatively low. I am not saying extremely low. It is comparatively low with, that's why I added this than other species here. Don't think like the organism with a larger body size will uh, like immediately it will go to extinction. They are having high chances of entering into extinction when compared to other species. That's it. Okay. So the second reason is the smaller population organisms. So organisms which are having smaller population, no, they will have low reproductive rate. Low reproductive rate in the sense they will not be fast breeders, they will be slow breeders. Slow breeders in the sense their reproductive potential will be comparatively less when compared to other organisms. Okay, so this is one example I will tell you for this also. Example, you write down smaller population with a low reproductive rate organism. For example, if you take blue whale, blue whale is having smaller population with a low reproductive rate, and also giant panda. Okay, giant panda, no, it is also having smaller population with a low reproductive rate. So they can easily enter into the extinction. Now the third reason is the organisms which are having fixed habitat. Fixed habitat means those organisms cannot survive in any other habitat. If you take panda or polar bears, they cannot survive in temperate or in tropical region. Okay, so those organisms which are having fixed habitat, or you can say migratory routes, these organisms, no, they will be adapted in a particular habitat. They cannot sustain in a new habitat. So for example, you just write down for this fixed habitat organisms, blue whale is again a fixed habitat organism. It cannot survive in any other habitat. And then whooping cranes, no, they are also having a fixed habitat. They cannot adapt in a new habitat, right? Fourth one, I will write the fourth and fifth, then I will show you the third slide. Then the organisms which are feeding at higher trophic level in the food chain. Some organisms you can notice, they will feed at organisms in the higher trophic level. Usually in the food chain, what will happen? You know food chain and food web, right? Suppose always the food chain will start with producers. Then it will go for primary consumer, that is herbivore, and then it will go for secondary consumers, and then it will go for tertiary consumers. Like this, the food chain will end up with the top consumers, right? Usually, how the flow of energy will be there? Tertiary consumers will feed on secondary consumers. Secondary consumers will feed on primary consumers, and primary consumers will feed on the producers. This is how the energy flow will be, right? In some cases, in some organisms, what they will do, this is said to be, this is the lower trophic level. First, this is the first trophic level, second trophic level, this comes under third trophic level of organism, and this comes under fourth trophic level. Okay. Now the organisms, I told you, tertiary consumers will consume the secondary consumer. So the fourth trophic level organism is consuming the third trophic level of organism, and third one the second, and second one the first. Now what is the reason I have given here? The feeding at higher trophic level. For example, if secondary consumer, it consumes the tertiary consumer, that is the higher trophic level of organism, that particular organism can easily prone to extinction. Okay, because it is like it is beyond the natural ecosystem, natural food chain that is taking place, right? So the organisms which feed at higher trophic level in the food chain, they are also easily prone to extinction. And example I will give you, then I will tell you the fifth one. Example, you just write for this. Bengal tiger is such an organism which feeds on higher trophic level. And then bald eagle, there is one organism called as bald eagle. This will also feeds on organisms which are in the higher trophic level. And the last reason, characteristic feature for the organisms that are more vulnerable for extinction is the organisms which are distributed only in a particular narrow range. That is narrow range of distribution. Narrow range of distribution means their population size will be very, very less. Okay. So example, and they will be distributed only in particular area. Particular area means, shall I tell you? Yeah. So for example, if you take kangaroos, kangaroo and all, they are kangaroo and other organisms called as marsupial. Have you heard marsupial? Pouched organisms. Pouched mammals are called as marsupials, right? And these organisms, no, they will survive. They can be seen distributed only in Australia and in South American continents. Okay, they will not be seen in Asia, Africa, or other places. They are restricted only to a small geographical area, and that is called as narrow range of distribution. For example, you can say island species. Island species will not be seen in any other region. And you can say that woodland, some woodland caribou. Have you heard about this woodland caribou? These are some organisms. Woodland means they are present in like dense forest. Okay, so they will not be seen in any other region. So these are the 5 characteristic features of organisms or species that are more vulnerable or more susceptible to extinction when compared to other species. Got it? Yeah, you can say penguins also, because they are seen only in the Antarctic regions, right? Here, so wait, I will explain again. You just copy these 3 points, then I will explain the 4th point again. Finish copying the 3rd slide, Ma. Shall I show you the 4th one? Yeah, this is the 4th slide. See, in the 4th point, one student asked me, what is this upward arrow mark representing? Upward arrow mark is representing, actually, this is the food chain. Okay. Now, when you arrange the organisms in the ecological pyramid, you know, ecological pyramid, like the base will be producer. Then comes primary consumer, then comes secondary consumer. And how organisms will be like consuming food. Producers will not eat the primary consumer, right? Primary consumer will eat the producer, and secondary consumer will eat the primary consumer. This arrow mark represents the flow of like how they will take the food. That is, primary consumer is the predator here, secondary consumer is the prey. And secondary consumer is predator, primary consumer is prey. Primary consumer is predator now, and producers are prey. Okay, so it is representing how they will feed in the different trophic level of your food chain. Got it? Have you all copied this fourth one? Yes. Now we are moving on to the last concept of this chapter, that is conservation of biodiversity. So this is the last topic. Now please put the heading: to prevent, like to protect the organisms from loss, we have to conserve the biodiversity. Okay, how we are going to do this conservation, and that is what we are going to discuss. Before going to the conservation, we should know what are the reasons to conserve the biodiversity. Okay, why we should conserve the biodiversity? We will have some reasons. First, let me tell you what do you mean by conservation. Then I will explain the reasons behind why we should conserve the biodiversity, and then we'll discuss what are the two different types of conservation of biodiversity, that is in situ and ex situ conservation. So first of all, what do you mean by this conservation? Okay, so conservation means the management of human use of the biosphere, the management of human use of the biosphere, so that it may yield greatest long-term benefits. Okay, it will result in greatest long-term. Long-term means which is said to be sustainable. That is, which will sustain for a long time. Sustainable benefits for the present generation. Benefits for the present generation by maintaining its potential. By maintaining its potential to meet the needs and aspiration of the future generation. Okay, to meet the needs and aspiration of future generation. See, whatever resources we have now, it may be abiotic, the biodiversity which is like present in the abiotic factors, all those resources, no, we need to maintain them. If we are not maintaining it properly, what happens? Future generation will not have the resources to use. That is our descendants, right? Our children, our grandchildren, like who are going to be future generations, they will be affected if we are spoiling or destroying the environment. Don't think like simply it is going to be air, water, or soil. Okay, not only the abiotic factor constitute the environment, the biotic factors also constitute the environment, because if you take any ecosystem, both biotic and abiotic components together, they have to maintain the ecosystem. So think about the ecosystem without biotic factor, the abiotic factors cannot be replenished. Okay, and you have studied nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, oxygen cycle. All these cycling of nutrients will occur only in the presence of biotic factors. At the same time, think about the ecosystem without abiotic factor. You studied, right, in the organism and population. The first in the intro part, what we studied is abiotic factors, how temperature is very important for the living organism, how light is essential, how water is essential, how soil, all these abiotic factors also play a very important role in the survival of living. So it is a must one to conserve both abiotic factors and biotic factors. And here in this chapter, we talk about only how to conserve biodiversity, the animal species and plant species that are surviving in the environment. So how can you define conservation? This is the definition of conservation. Okay. Conservation means Management of use of biosphere includes both biotic and abiotic factors. Okay? Because biotic cannot survive without abiotic factors. So that it may yield greatest benefit for us, long-term benefit for us for the present generation by maintaining its potential. Okay, by maintaining its potential to meet the needs and aspiration. Aspiration means that is the objective of future generation. So this is what conservation refers to. Now I'm going to tell you what are the strategies of conservation. So strategies means like how you can conserve the environment, right? And what are the needs for conservation? Why we should conserve the biodiversity or the environment? Okay. So put down the heading under this conservation of biodiversity. What are the strategies of conservation? Strategies means the steps to be taken. Okay, always the strategies word represents what are the steps or remedial measures need to be taken for conservation. So under strategies of conservation, let me tell you what are the steps. The first one, no, the species which are under threatening condition. Threatening means they are going to face the extinction. So the threatened species should be protected. This is one step to conserve the biodiversity. Because once the species are extincted, you cannot protect them or conserve them. Before entering into extinction, you have to protect the species, and those species which are in the threat to extinction, no, they are said to be threatened species or endangered species. So these threatened species should be protected either in situ way, in situ conservation we will study. We are going to discuss what is in situ conservation and what is ex situ. Either through in situ conservation method or through ex situ conservation method, we have to protect the threatened species. This is one strategy of conservation of biodiversity. Now, the second way is the critical habitats. Critical habitat means the habitat which is destroyed by anthropogenic activity or any other activities. Those critical habitats, no, they should be safeguarded. They should be safeguarded. Safeguarded means it will not be allowed for hunting. It, you know, right? Poaching of animals, right? In situ, I will tell you, ma. We are going to discuss about in situ and ex situ conservation in detail. Don't worry. Under this conservation of two different types of conservation, we are going to study about what is in situ and what is ex situ. Now you just write down what are the strategies of conservation. Later I will discuss about this in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. Okay. The second point is critical habitat should be safeguarded. That is the habitat which are like allowed for hunting and the habitat which are overexploited, those habitats should be safeguarded. And third one, unique ecosystems. Unique ecosystem. Some ecosystem are said to be unique in nature. Okay, those ecosystems should be protected. Should be protected. Unique ecosystem should be protected. Fine. And next, the fourth one is the organisms like which are see, for example, there should be proper planning and management of resources. Proper planning and management of resources such as water resource, land resource, everything. Proper planning and management, that is there should not be overuse of any resource or exploitation of resources. That is called as proper planning and management of land and water use. Land and water use should be properly planned and managed. Why? Because these land and water habitats, like many species are there which are dependent on this land and water habitat. Okay, so it should be properly planned and managed. And then utilization should not exceed. Utilization should not exceed. That is, over exploitation should not be done. Utilization should not exceed the, it should not exceed the productive capacity. For example, the productive capacity of a particular environment is less, and if we are overusing it, then what will happen? Then automatically the producers will become extinct. The plant which we are like using, the products that we are using from the plants, no, it will become exit. It will become, that particular species will become extinct. So that utilization should not become exceed. That is, over exploitation should not be done. Okay. And the last one is the international trade of wildlife organisms. The international trade of wildlife organisms. Okay, this international trade of wildlife organisms, or the products what we are getting from the wildlife organisms, or their products. It should be regulated under proper, it should be regulated by legislature. That is, previously we don't have any restriction for hunting of organisms, right? Nowadays you cannot do like this, because we have many rules and regulations for, like, we should not hunt organism for their horns or for their skin. In olden days, in ancient period, we used to study in stories, right? Kings will go for hunting, and they will bring animal skin, and they will gift the animal skin to their partners. Okay, and then they will bring the horns and all. That is, they are said to be bravery. Fine, so it is considered to be like the boldness or the brave of the person, those who are bringing the tusk of elephant or the horns of bulls and all. And later it was completely restricted, because many rules and regulations has been registered. And that is what the sixth point is mentioning. International trade of wildlife organisms or their products should be regulated by legislature and administrative measures. There are wildlife conservation for controlling all these poaching of animals, hunting of animals, everything. Okay, fine. So these are the strategies of biodiversity. And now we are going to discuss strategies is over. I will show you all the points. What are the strategies of conservation? Strategies means these are the remedial measures or steps that has been taken for conserving the organisms, both plant species and also animal species. Okay, so you just write the 3 points, then I will tell you what are the reasons why we should conserve the biodiversity. If we are not conserving the biodiversity, what are the drawbacks or what are the disadvantages that we will face? Okay, we just copy these two, 6th and 7th slide, then we can go to the reasons for conservation of biodiversity. 5th slide, wait, this is 5th one. I'll show you from the 5th one, 5th, 6th and 7th slide. After that, I will do this, tell you about the reasons for the conservation of biodiversity. Tomorrow we will be getting half an hour class, right? 8:30 to 9. So sir will discuss the paper you wrote in the last week. There is organism and population paper he will discuss, right? This is 6th slide. Finish writing 6th one. This is 7th one. The last point is there in under the strategies for conservation. Fine. Now the next topic under this conservation of biodiversity, what we are going to see is what are the reasons for conservation of biodiversity. If we are not conserving the biodiversity properly, what will happen and what are the problems we will face if there is no proper conservation of biodiversity? Okay, so what are the there are three important reasons for conservation. Unique ecosystem means like that ecosystem will be available only in a, you can see some organisms present only in that particular ecosystem. Okay, they will not be available. For example, you take penguins. Penguins will be seen only in that polar region, right? That is one sort of ecosystem. If that polar region, that ecosystem is not properly maintained, then the organisms which are depending on that ecosystem, no, they will also become extinct. Got it? Fine. Now listen. So now what are the reasons for the conservation of biodiversity? Based on these reasons for conservation of biodiversity, we are going to categorize them under three reasons. I'm just categorizing the reasons under three categories. So what are the three categories are? The first category is narrowly utilitarian. What are the narrow utilities we are getting by conserving the biodiversity? Okay. And second one is broadly utilitarian. Broad utility is what we are getting from this conservation of biodiversity. And the last one is ethical reasons. So these are the three categories we are going to discuss. Three different categories we are going to discuss for the reasons for conservation of biodiversity. So first, let us start with the narrowly utilitarian. Narrow-minded. Narrow-minded means it is going to be a selfish purpose. Okay. Selfish purpose. Selfish purpose means you are not going to think about the environment. You are not going to think about the ecosystem or anything. You are going to think about only about our own purpose. That is what we call it as narrowly utilitarian. Okay. So according to narrowly utilitarian, the conservation is obvious because human directly derives several economic benefits from biodiversity, okay, or from nature. So narrowly utilitarian means the utility what we are getting is the human directly derives several economic benefits. We are deriving several economic benefits from the nature. From nature, that is what your biodiversity. From biodiversity or from nature, we are getting several benefits. For that several benefits, we are under the need for conservation of biodiversity. So let me tell you what are the benefits we are getting from biodiversity or from nature under this narrow utilitarian. Like food, we are dependent on food. Yes, that is, we are dependent on plants for food. Plants comes under your biodiversity. Like you say, take cereals, rice, wheat, all these, and then pulses, the fruits we are having, vegetables. Okay, all these are like the biodiversity. We are dependent on plants for the food. And then let me tell you, apart from food, what are the other things we are dependent on? Industrial products. Some of the industrial products what we are getting from plant and animal. Let me tell you what are those industrial products. Lubricants, yes, and then dyes, resins, perfumes, tannins, rubber, gum, okay, etc., etc. Like so many industrial products are there where we are getting from nature. Then apart from this, medicinal products. Yes, we know a lot of medicinal plants are there. For example, you studied in anti-malaria. We are getting the quinine drug only from the bark of cinchona tree. Yes, so medicinal products. Okay, so many medicinal products we are getting from the plants, and not only from plants, even from animals we are getting from medicinal products, right? Have you heard of hirudin? Hirudin is a compound which is taken from blood sucking leech. It is an anticoagulant. Okay, suppose for one side headache and all, they will allow the leeches to pass through. These leeches know it will suck the blood, that is it will dissolve the clot which is present in your body, so that that pain will get relieved. Okay, so many medicinal products we are getting from both plants and also from animals. And then firewood, which we are using for cooking and other fuel purpose. Okay, then fibers, etc., etc., right? So many products we are getting from nature, that is both from plant species and also from animal species. So whatever product we are getting, we are dependent on plant and animal species. That is the biodiversity that comes under your narrowly utilitarian. Okay, you know the drugs what we are using, no, chemical compounds or drugs what we are using, medicines, about 25% of the drugs what we are using, 25% of the chemical compounds or drugs in the world market, in the world market, are derived from plants. Remaining 75% are synthesized artificially in the laboratories. 25% of the drugs what we are using in the medicinal field, you know, they are all derived from plants. Right? So nobody knows how many medicinal plants are still unexplored. So many medicinal plants are still unexplored in the tropical rainforest. Okay, fine. Now this is about your narrowly utilitarian. Narrowly utilitarian is over. You just copy the narrowly utilitarian. Then I will discuss about the broadly utilitarian. So please keep in your mind, narrowly utilitarian, no, it is completely going to be the products that are useful for us from nature. From nature in the sense, from natural resource, and also from the biodiversity of plant species and animal species. We just copy this 8th slide, then I will show you the 9th one. 7th one you want me to show? Yes, these are the same reasons for which we are destroying the biodiversity. 7th one, student asked me to show the 7th slide. This is 7th one. Now please copy it soon. See, when we are utilizing something, it means we are exploiting that, right? And that exploitation, when it reaches beyond the limit, then when it becomes over exploitation, then it will lead to loss of that particular resource. Got it? So this is 9th. 8th. So please copy fastly, ma. You are taking much time. When I am writing on the slide, you can also write it in your notebook. I'm dictating simultaneously, I'm writing. You also have to do the same thing. You have to listen, at the same time you have to write it in your notebook. Don't do these two things separately, then it will take long time. So this is 9th one. Fine. Now the second one is broadly utilitarian. Broadly utilitarian means here the biodiversity conservation is going to be useful for the entire ecosystem or for the earth. Like, it is not going to be a selfish purpose, right? So this biodiversity, we know like biodiversity plays a very, very important role in maintaining the ecological balance. Okay. So biodiversity plays major role in ecosystem or in the nature. Plays major role in the ecosystem. Fine. Now the broadly utilitarian is going to be helpful for the ecosystem and not for the single person or for human. For example, I will tell you how it is helpful for the ecosystem. If you take the Amazon rainforest, it is one biodiversity. Like I told you, many species of biodiversity are present in the Amazon rainforest, right? So this Amazon rainforest, through photosynthesis, the plants present in the Amazon rainforest, through photosynthesis, it is producing, it produces 20% of the total oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. It is producing the 20% of total oxygen which is present in our Earth's atmosphere. Okay. So the economical value of such services, you cannot estimate it in the this 20% of oxygen which is releasing from Amazon rainforest. No, it cannot be estimated in money. Okay, it is not based on economic use. It is actually a natural use, right? So this economic, this value of such broadly utilitarian releasing oxygen to the atmosphere, it is not talked based on the money. It is completely based on the resource. Okay. And also the pollination, you can say the pollination. If pollination is not taking place, without which the plants cannot give us fruit, seeds, so through pollinators. So in case of pollination, through pollinators, you know what are pollinators, right? They are insects, birds, bats, all these. Again, they are also through pollinators. It is also another service. It is the service that ecosystem provides us. These are all ecosystem services. Okay. This is another important broadly utilitarian, you can say. And one more example, if you want to know, I can give you. That is the aesthetic pleasure. You know what I mean by aesthetic pleasure? Aesthetic pleasure, that is the pleasant moments we have in the nature. Like when, why like when you are stressed out in your academics studies or in your work or profession, what we will do, if we want to have a refreshment in for our body and mind, we will go somewhere like we will travel through hills, we will go for a trekking, we will go for a small trip. Why we are going all these things, doing all these things? We will get some aesthetic pleasure. These aesthetic pleasure will refresh your body and also your mind. So what are the aesthetic pleasure you will get from nature? When you're walking through a forest, you will have the, like when you when that is, you can see like walking through garden, you will get the full bloom flowers, right? So walking through full bloom flowers during the spring season, it will give you some mental refreshment, right? And also listening to the bird sound, listening to the melodious sounds or songs of bulbul or cuckoo, all these again, it will also give you mental refreshment. Again, you cannot talk about this is said to be money. All these comes under your broad utilitarian. Okay, so narrow utilitarian means that is going to be completely the products what we are getting from plants and animals. Broadly utilitarian, it will not talk about the product or money, it is just something that is more than that. It is from the nature what you get it. Okay, it may be like the oxygen what we are getting in the atmosphere, or the pollinators through which, through animal pollinators, what we are getting from products what we are getting from animal, that is from the plants, that is also the service that ecosystem provides us. Then the aesthetic pleasure, the flowers we see, the nature we see, the sceneries, okay, the songs which we are, that is the melodious sounds of birds, all these things are said to be some aesthetic pleasure what we are getting from the nature, and they all come under the broadly utilitarian. And the last one is the ethical reason. So this is very simple thing. Ethical reasons, any idea you have about ethical reasons? That is, it represents the spiritual. Ethical means it represents the spiritual and philosophical need for conserving the organisms. Spiritual and philosophical need for conservation of biodiversity. Have you heard about sacred groves? Sacred groves and all, right? They all come under ethical reason. Actually, it is our, this ethical reason is, this is purely based on the moral. It is our moral duty. From in your smaller classes, you have one subject, right? Moral science, right? So what you will study in moral science? How to protect nature, how to respect nature. You will study about everything, how to respect elders, how to be disciplined, how to be like to be polite to others, all those things. So like under your moral science, one of your moral duty is to take care or take care of the environment, because without environment we cannot sustain, we cannot survive. Okay, so we have to protect the environment and also the species which are living in the environment. We should not harm the environment, and also the biodiversity which are present in the environment. That is what we call it as ethical reason. That's all. So these are the reasons for the conservation of biodiversity. Okay, yeah, sometimes no, if in villages and all, you would have noticed, if there is no rainfall, they will do some prayers, right? So these prayers and some like they will do some spiritual things and all to get rainfall, or to get to avoid this natural calamities, all those things. Okay, so they all come under ethical reasons. I will show you the reasons for conservation of biodiversity slides from the beginning. So this is the first one, eighth slide. This is where we started the reasons for conservation of biodiversity. We just finish it off this. Last 5 more minutes, I will just give you the introduction of in situ and ex situ, that categorization. And tomorrow, just in 15 minutes or a half an hour, we'll complete. So tomorrow in the half an hour, I'll complete this chapter. Okay. Wait, at the end, I will show you all the slides. Now we are in 8th or 9th slide. If you are asking me to show the second slide, other students will get irritated. Okay. So wait, after giving that introduction of in situ and ex situ, I'll show you all the slides from the beginning. So this is 9th one. Students, please don't come late to the class. This is what we are telling from the beginning. That's why you are missing some of the classes and also the information what I am giving. Please be sharp at 8:25. Be ready in front of your system or laptop or anything. Okay. This is 10th one, broadly utilitarian. So many times we are informing you, but again and again you are doing the same mistake. I don't know what's your problem. Suppose if you are going to school, regular school, you will be ready by 8 o'clock. No, your auto or van, anything like it will come sharply by 7:30 or 7:45, half an hour before itself you will get ready. Now, what's your problem? You are in home. You need not to be dressed up, anything. Simply you have to wake up early, get refreshed, have something to eat, or at least have some milk, and you should get ready for the class. You are totally leisure now. Still, you are like coming late to the class in the sense like it is showing your irresponsibility. Okay, one day I will come late to the class. Okay, you just enter into the class by 8:30. I will come by 9 o'clock, and you are waiting for half an hour. You will not get irritated. Is don't see something. You have to maintain the punctuality everywhere. Only if you study how to be punctual for during your school days and college days for your classes, you will be punctual when you go for a profession. Or else there you will be losing money, you will be losing your name, good name, everything. So punctuality is one of the basic moral. Okay, try to learn from now itself. It will not come suddenly in your life when you go for a profession, right? Okay, fine. I'm diverting from biology class to moral science class. Right. Okay, so students, now the last topic under this conservation of biodiversity is how we are going to conserve the biodiversity. Okay, so before this, under conservation, what we discussed is what is conservation, what are the reasons for conservation of biodiversity, and now we are exactly to the topic, that is how we have to conserve the biodiversity. So under this conservation of biodiversity, we have two important categories. One is said to be the in situ conservation, and other one is called as the ex situ conservation. Okay, so this conservation is related to biodiversity. That is your plant species and animal species, how they can be conserved under this in situ conservation and ex situ conservation. So I'll just tell you simply what is in situ and ex situ. Tomorrow we can discuss in detail. In situ conservation is called as on-site conservation. And ex situ conservation, on means opposite to on is off. It is called as off-site conservation. Any idea about what is on-site and what is off-site? You know, yeah, some games you can play online. Some games you can play offline, right? What is online game and what is offline? Online is only in the presence of internet, you can play it, okay? And what is on-site and what is off-site? On-site is directly in the original habitat of the organism. You are conserving the organism, then it is on-site. You will not shift the organism to a new habitat. Exactly in the same habitat, in the same environment, if you are maintaining or conserving the organism, then it is called as on-site. Okay, and off-site is no, like it will be yeah, the original habitat will not be, it is not like proper, it will not safeguard the organism, or the environmental condition may not be good for the organism to survive there. Under those conditions, if it is not safe, okay, under all those conditions, you will shift the organism or you will protect the organism in an artificial environment, that is man-made environment. Very simple. In situ is protecting the organisms under natural environment, and ex situ is protecting the organisms under man-made environment, which we call it as artificially created environment. Okay. So tomorrow we can discuss about this in detail. Now I will show you all the slides from the beginning. Those who didn't copy or those who didn't miss, those who have missed the slides, you just copy now. Last 1 more minute, I will show you all the slides. So this is the first one. So in the last 1 minute, you cannot sit and write. You please just take a pic. Okay. In situ, ex situ, tomorrow I will give you a complete explanation and also the examples. Right. So this is the first one. Just take a snapshot, ma. Later you can sit and write. Second one, I'm not telling only for bio class. You have to follow all, like all the morals in all the subjects. Okay, all the subject classes. So you are having only half the number of classes. If you go for regular school, you will have 8 to 9 hour class, but you are now having only 4 hours classes. If you are missing that 2 classes, then you cannot sit and read by your own. When you are reading by your own, no, if it is regular class, you can directly meet the teacher, you can ask your doubt, clarify your doubt, everything. But now the situation is not like that. So if you miss your classes, no, it will be very difficult for you to understand the concepts. And one day, if you miss the class, the next day follow up, you cannot, right? So this is third one, ma. In between, you have lot of time. After that, you can sleep, you can do whatever you want. This is fourth one. Fifth slide. Sixth one. Seventh one. Eighth one. Ninth one. 10th. 11th. And this is the last slide. Okay, students, thank you so much. So tomorrow we'll discuss about this in situ and ex situ conservation, and tomorrow I'll complete this chapter. Okay. So tomorrow is Wednesday, right? So Thursday we can start human reproduction chapter. Thank you all. Take care, all of you. See you all tomorrow. Bye.